And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight our special guest is John Litton. John is halfway through his term as Grand Master of Freemasonry in New Zealand. To get to the top in Freemasonry is a wonderful achievement. So I asked John what he likes best about the job. John Litton, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful position in our New Zealand society.
Yes, I'm very privileged.
The Grand Master of Freemasonry. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a pretty impressive title, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have the role. It's a great privilege. It gives me a lot of opportunity to meet a lot of fellow Freemasons and their partners, and to travel a fair bit as well. So, I'm in the second year of my term of 3 years. And we've done a lot of travelling, and we met some wonderful people, some wonderful Freemasons and their partners, yeah.
Now you're travelling right now, and that's why you're in Auckland, because you're a Wellington man,
yes.
But it's the 125th anniversary of the Grand Lodge in New Zealand.
Of Freemasons in New Zealand, yeah.
Wow, that's an amazing record, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
They didn't get there easily, because prior to that, they had the English, the Irish and the Scottish constitutions in New Zealand, and they decided to form their own constitution.
Yeah.
I have to say it took a number of years to get to that stage, and even then there was a fair bit of discussion, shall we say, I think, to put it politely. But the guys, you have to admire them for their sort of enthusiasm for doing it.
So let's get that right before we talk about the roadshow. You're saying that 125 years ago there was a Scottish constitution, an Irish constitution, and an English constitution.
Correct.
And the New Zealanders said, "Hey, we want our own," and that's what they did.
Virtually what happened. Yeah.
So that was 125 years ago.
That was 125 years. I mean, some of the lodges here, like I'm going to a meeting very shortly, which in fact the age of the lodge is 150 years, because prior to becoming a New Zealand constitution, they were Irish. Yeah. So some of the lodges are quite old, yeah.
They are. Now, you're on a roadshow as well. There's a Freemasonry roadshow. It was at the Aotea Centre?
Yes, just been there and had a look at it again. It's a wonderful exhibition. Spells out in good English what we actually get down to. One of the problems we have is that we tend to speak what I call Masonic speak, and people don't understand it. And what is nice about the roadshow is that all the explanation is quite clear and put in plain English, which is really good, yeah.
Now, there's a lot of mystery, confusion, bewilderment, and absolute bunkum on the internet about Freemasons. There's a group of conspiracists out there that believe that every evil in the world was created by Freemasons.
Yep.
And how do they get to that conclusion?
Well, I think the problem to some extent is the way that we've behaved. I mean, my father was a Freemason, and we weren't allowed to ask him as kids. You know, he disappeared once a month with his little bag, and we weren't allowed to sort of say.
You weren't even allowed to
We were
talk
just
to
told
him,
he was going to lodge, and that was it. And so I think one of the things that obviously people then sort of started to were a bit scurrilous about what these people were doing once a month in lodge rooms which had no windows and looked like a sort of a prison. And so we got that sort of reputation.
For being a secret society.
For being a secret society. Yeah. But what I've tried to do, and certainly all the people around me, all the sort of management team, we're now trying to be far more open. I mean, we've got nothing to be ashamed of. I describe us as a caring organisation. I think that's the easiest way to understand it. We care for people. We have some pretty high morals and ethos, and we practice this caring in our lodges. We care for people in our community. We care for people in our lodges and their partners and families. And part of our caring, of course, is all the research that we do, medical research. And currently, of course, this year we've been combining with the Blind Institution with their 125-year celebrations as well. And so we've combined with them, and we have actually raised funds to buy them what they call daisy players, which is a sort of, I suppose it's a bit like a CD machine, which is a specialised machine so that they can read books and so on for people with impaired sighting. And our aim was to provide 125.
Of those machines?
Of those machines. We've actually exceeded that. It's been a huge success. All the lodges and the Freemasons right throughout New Zealand have got behind it. And we've already presented the 125 and the funds are still pouring in, so we'll be there to do more for the blind.
So you're in the business of doing good works. That's basically it.
Basically, yeah.
And these mad conspiracy theorists, they completely miss the point.
And it's probably because we don't talk about it enough,
Yeah.
you know. And I think you're, you know, I've said to, I mean, I have to say that when I joined Freemasonry, my father didn't sort of cajole me at all because I'd left the UK then and was living in Africa. And my boss was a Freemason, and we went to one of what they call a ladies' night, which is a thing that's peculiar to English Freemasonry, where they take their partners and wives out once a year and give them a splendid sort of dinner and presents. And we were invited to go to one of these in Kenya, and whilst I was there, I went up to the bar to buy a drink for my wife and myself and some of the people on the table. And I suddenly realised that all the people around me were people I was playing sports with: hockey, rugby, tennis, squash, all that.
And you didn't know they were Freemasons?
And I didn't know they were Freemasons.
Wow.
And they were like bees around a honeypot. All of a sudden I'm surrounded by them as I'm at the bar, and they sort of said to me, have you ever thought about joining Freemasonry? I said, yes, my father's a Freemason, but no, I won't join it because you guys won't tell me what it's about. So I was quite stroppy, I suppose, in that respect. And one of the things that stuck with me, which I've never forgotten actually, was that one of the guys, I said, so what do you think of your father? And I said, well, he's one of the kindest, generous men that I've ever met, totally honest, and you know, he's a wonderful bloke. If I can aspire to being like him, I'd be, you know. And they said, well, do you think he would have joined an organisation of which you didn't approve? And I said, well no.
That's a good point.
And so that sort of hit home. And then on the way home, my wife Diana said to me, what was that? When they sort of bailed you up at the bar? I said, well, you can probably imagine they were having a crack at me about joining Freemasonry. And she just said, well, why don't you? Because your father would be absolutely delighted. And that's what triggered me to join Freemasonry.
Wow.
It's as simple as that. So, and I've never looked back, and I think it's probably one of the best moves I've ever made.
And wouldn't your father be proud to know that you became the
Yes.
Grand Master in New Zealand?
Yes, he would, because he's been dead some years now. Sadly, he didn't propose me into Freemasonry and didn't see me being initiated, and that's my regret now. I wish I'd, you know, I'd been...
Look, just to a little add-on here, Freemasonry was very secretive because it started way back in 1760, and at that time, people were very fearful to talk about religion, to talk about politics, to talk about anything. And in fact, they found in Freemasonry an opportunity to join an organisation where they could actually discuss things without being arrested and executed. And so that's how it developed, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I suppose the secret side of it was basically because they were stonemasons, and they all had their guilds, which they had their secrets, and their craft, and they were secrets. You know, they didn't reveal to people. A bit like, I don't know whether you've ever spoken to French polishers. If you ever see an old school French polisher, he won't tell you what his mixtures are when he French polishes. No, that's his trade secret.
That's his trade, yes.
And so these stonemasons had their trade secrets. And so they started to form lodges and so on, and that's how it all really started. And that's where the secret bit came into it, of course, as well. But I suppose the beauty for me is that one of the things about Freemasonry is you can go to meetings where you know you're amongst people with integrity, who care, and we don't discuss religion or politics, and we tolerate, you know, we're very tolerant of all people, and I think that was one of the things that's really appealed.
But the wonderful thing about it too is you could leave New Zealand and go to pick a place on the map in the world, say Milwaukee in the United States. You could arrive in that town, phone the local lodge, and you'd be treated like a king, and they'd be overwhelmed to have you. And
the beauty
that's what's great
is,
about it, isn't it? They look after you.
And also as well, I think when you go there, you quickly become almost, instantly friends, quite frankly, because you know you can trust those people because they have the same sort of background to you and think the same way as you do. So yeah, it's a very nice organisation in that respect.
Now, it's had its heyday, Masonry, Freemasonry. After the Second World War, there wasn't a lot of competition, but they were up to 50,000 members.
Correct.
Today, it's down to 10,000.
It's lower than that now, unfortunately.
Oh, is it lower than that? But even Rotary, even the Round Table organisations, the Lions, they're all suffering the same
fate, really.
Pace of membership loss. And it is because there's so much competition now, isn't there?
Well, I think I think when you think about one of the things that perhaps all of the organisations like ours haven't realised is the changes around them. I mean, when you think about just the mobile phone, if you remember 10 years ago, we had mobile phones that were like bricks.
Yeah.
Now look at them now, and they're slim and neat, can sit in your pocket. So I think that one of the things that we haven't realised is, well, the change in the family dynamics. I mean, when you think about it, when I joined Freemasonry, we were a one-income family. My wife stayed at home, and she was the person that looked after all the domestic issues, like the children and so on, and took them to school and so on, and whilst I worked. And we had a 40-hour week, and we really didn't have all the pressures around them that the young people today have. So today, if you look at the family, I mean, I didn't have a car until I think I was 28. Today, I think young people, if they haven't got a car when they're 15 or 16, they're out of it, you know.
You're not cool.
No. So I think the pressures on younger people today are much greater. Most families have 2 cars, if not more. They've got to have a house with 4 bedrooms and en-suites and spa bars and all the latest TV equipment. So they have a huge amount. And we're competing against the fact that both the parents are working, and so they share the domestic duties, which we didn't do before. So time is precious for outside things, and that's where we're competing.
What ideas are coming out of the meetings?
We need to explain our organisation, and because when you get down to it and people do join, they realise how attractive the organisation is. The word attractive is the right word to use. And I just think we need to go out there. We do need to change some of the things that we used to do. Taking in mind what the younger generation want. For instance, we used to have our lodge meetings, of course, and we have a meal afterwards, but it was restricted to the men, and sometimes the meal was just sandwiches and a beer, which was fine, you know. But young people today, they go out for meals and they want wine and so on, and they want a meal that's all catered for, and they want their wives to be with them, and there's nothing wrong with that, quite frankly, you know. And we've just got to realise that and start to move that way as well. So listen to the younger people as to, you know, what do you want from Freemasonry, having explained it. And most of them say, I've said to me, because I usually sort of try and eyeball them, because they're the future of Freemasonry, they're going to be the custodians when I'm long gone. And they say that they don't want to change the history of the way Freemasonry works, our ceremonial things, they don't want to change any of that. And they like the fact that they can come into a lodge. In fact, one young guy was fascinating. He's an IT guy, and he said, I'm literally exposed every day, hour of the day, with my cell phone, my laptop, my tablet. I can't get away from it, except when I go to lodge. I can go to lodge and I can go into the meeting, and that's all outside, and I can relax. And, you know, and I think that surprised me for a young guy, you know. So he was looking for something that would take the pressure off his work pressure and his home pressure. So I think we have lots of things that we can do, and there's lots of young people want to help people in the community as well. So,
John, we're running out of time, but I do want to know, did you ever think that you would be the Grand Master, and what was the pathway to becoming the Grand Master of New Zealand?
I never thought of it. I've been extremely lucky in my life. In fact, somebody said to me the other day, would you change it? The answer is no, I wouldn't. I mean, the fact that I have a lovely wife, and she's been very supportive. I mean, that's part of the role of Grand Master, your partner. It plays a very important part, and Diana, my wife, plays a huge part for me. But I never aspired to being Grand Master. I started off, and I was hinted at about taking on a Grand Officer role, which I did, and whether my face was in the right spot, I've certainly had a luck up for sure. And of course, I never aspired to it. Lodges actually nominate you for various roles. And so I was lucky enough to get to the top. So.
You have to be a good people person, a good team player, a good mixer. Obviously, you had those skills. Where do you think you got them from?
I got them from my business sense, I think, as well, because I've been a fairly senior manager in the financial services, and one of the things I've always done was build a good team around me, because that makes it much stronger. And I like to be challenged, to be honest. I mean, I think if you're a senior manager, the only way you can perform is if the people that are managers under you challenge the things that you're doing and come up with ideas. So you can't do it on your own. You need a team around you, and Freemasonry certainly does that for me. I've got a wonderful team around me at the moment.
Now, John, people may be listening to our show. They're baby boomers. There's no age limit on who can join, is there? How would you go about if you thought, hey, I like what John's saying, I'd like to join Freemasonry? What's the next step?
Okay, so first of all, you've got to be over 21. We now have funny enough, I've got the booklet in my pocket here somewhere, which I can show you, which is something that we've designed, and I'll leave with you as well, if you haven't seen it. It's a book that talks about Freemasonry in plain English.
I like it. It says, Plain English Guide to Freemasonry.
Totally. And so all the questions that usually younger people or people ask about Freemasonry, we've tried to answer in there. And that was put together by the fact that when I became Grand Master, my lovely wife said to me, you know, I feel a bit threatened here because you actually never sat down and talked about what Freemasonry is about, even to me. Yeah. And then I have a young daughter who's a school teacher who is very challenging. She's lovely, actually. She said, and it's the same for me, Dad. You've never talked to me. And all my friends are saying, so what does it mean your father's being Grand Master? So that triggered Di and I to put together this sort of booklet.
In plain English.
In plain English. No Masonic gobbledygook, as I call it, in there.
But the first step would be to go to
freemasons.co.nz.
And request this in plain English.
Yeah, you can request that, yeah. So,
but look, just before you do, I mean, you get to meet John Key, all the politicians. You get to meet everyone in New Zealand, don't you?
Yeah,
what a great opportunity.
I mean, last week or the week before, we were up here in Auckland going to the Dean of Auckland University's dinner, you know, and all those wonderful people there as well. No, I would never have had that opportunity in the past either, you know, so so it's been really good,
John, great talking to you.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Been wonderful.
No,
thanks, John. Bye-bye.
Bye.